Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Mists of Pandaria patch 5.2 beta preview video. And in this video we're going to be taking a look at one of the new 10-man normal mode encounters that's coming in this patch, and this is the Iron Quan encounter. Now, I'm not too sure if I've pronounced that right, probably haven't because that's the way it goes. Now, before I show you the tries, unfortunately we never really made it through phase 1. However, I'll explain roughly what's meant to happen in phase 1, and then I'll just show you a list of the abilities for the other phases, and we'll try and put together some kind of a tactic in order to see how to complete the fight. So for the first phase of this fight, Iron Quan is going to be fighting on 3 different types of mounts, which are his Quillen mounts, so to speak, and each of those will grant several different abilities. However, we're going to take a quick look at the first 2 abilities that Iron Quan will have that are separate and he will have throughout the whole of phase 1. So his first ability goes by the name of Throw Spear, and this is where Iron Quan will throw his spear at a random player and it will inflict 100,000 physical damage upon impact. This spear is also used by the 3 different Quillen for some of their abilities throughout phase 1. His second ability is called Impale, and this will inflict a normal amount of damage, so his normal auto attack damage onto the tank, plus 20,000 bleed damage every 1 second. This is a stacking debuff on your tanks, and it's the reason why you need to bring 2 tanks to this fight. Iron Quan's first Quillen goes by the name of Rorschach the Molten Flare, and as you can probably guess from the name, this Quillen is all about fire and burning you more than anything else really. So Rorschach's first ability is called Molten Inferno, and this is where he will emit a molten flame which will inflict 80,000 fire damage to all players. This will also relieve Rorschach of 10 Molten Energy, and we'll talk about the Molten Energy once we've looked at the rest of his abilities. His next ability is called Molten Overload, and when Rorschach reaches 100 Molten Energy, he will overload and combust, which will cast Molten Inferno every 1 second until he is emptied of Molten Energy, so until it goes back to naught. This will also temporarily increase his damage dealt by 50%. So that's your raid wiper right there, just to be blunt. You don't want Molten Overload to go off at all throughout the encounter. Rorschach's next ability goes by the name of Unleashed Flame, and this is where he will burn the largest cluster of enemies that he can find, inflicting 700,000 fire damage, which will be split evenly among the targets. Again, if this Unleashed Flame does get cast, it will relieve Rorschach of 30 Molten Energy, and there must be at least 3 targets clustered together in order for Rorschach to bother with them and target them. This ability will leave a debuff on the players that do get hit by it called Scorched, and this will increase their fire damage taken by 20% for 30 seconds. And Rorschach's final ability is called Ignite Spear, Burning Cinders, and as I mentioned at the very start of the video, this is an ability that's targeted at Iron Quan's spear, and this is where he will spit molten lava at the spear, causing it to rupture the ground with magma, and this will inflict 25,000 fire damage initially, and then stacks 15,000 fire damage every 1 second while standing inside of the effect. So, as I said as well, we're going to take a quick look at this Molten Energy bar that Rorschach seems to have, and this will go up to 100, and if it is to hit 100, he will obviously wipe the raid with Molten Overload, which deals too much damage. Now, the best thing we found was to have 2 groups of people split up, 2 groups of 3 people at either side, as you'll probably see later on in the video with some world markers. And then group A would stack up and take 3 waves of the Unleashed Flame, which would relieve him of 90 Molten Energy, and then they would spread out so that he then targets group B, who would then take 3 more waves of Unleashed Flame, which again would relieve him of 90 Molten Energy. And by doing this, you're keeping his Molten Energy really low, and there's no chance of it getting to 100 and your group wiping. Again, we use 2 groups because it's helpful for the Scorch debuff as well, and it is about 35-40 seconds time that you have, so the debuff will run off. Iron Quan's second Quillen mount goes by the name of Quetzal the Stormcaller, and he is obviously something to do with storms, so he's more of a lightning-y, windy sort of Quillen. And his first ability goes by the name of Arcing Lightning, and this is where he will zap a random player with lightning, and it will stun them and cause them to shock nearby allies for 30,000 nature damage. This will also jump to anyone that is standing close to the person that does get shocked, and it will also cause them to pulse with electricity, and they will be stunned until another player pulls them out of the storm. However, if they do die under the effect of lightning storm, then arcing lightning will zap a random player, and the same debuff will be applied to them. So this obviously just seems like a bit of a spread out phase. Kel'Thuz's second ability goes by the name of Windstorm, and this is where he will pull all of the players pretty much on top of each other into the eye of a rushing windstorm. Now players will suffer 30,000 nature damage every second until they are able to exit the storm, and damage, healing and absorb effects cast while inside the windstorm will be decreased by 80%. And also once the storm is over, some rushing winds will linger, so this is a sub-ability to Windstorm. And rushing winds attract players into the storm, and it will inflict 137,000 nature damage every 5.2 seconds to people that stand within the rushing winds. And Kel'Thuz's final ability goes by the name of Strike Spear Storm Cloud, and again this is where he will target the Iron Quan's spear that he throws at a random player. And this is where he will call down lightning on his spear, which will cause a rolling storm cloud which will electrify players for 200,000 nature damage. And players become fully electrified and will be stunned at 3 stacks of the storm cloud debuff. And this stun will last for 20 seconds. So just stay away from the spear when it just glows with lightning. There's no need to be near it. And the third and final Quillen for this phase goes by the name of Damren the Frozen Sage. And by the name you can obviously guess that this Quillen is all about the icy freeziness. And his first ability goes by the name of Dead Zone. And this is where he will directionally shield himself, and standing in the dead zone will cause all incoming and outgoing attacks to miss. So this is probably going to be like a frontal cone shielded ability, or something along those lines where you just shouldn't stand. His second ability goes by the name of Freeze, and this is where he will freeze a random player, and after between 1 and 5 seconds, Damren will then shatter them, which will inflict 150,000 frost damage to all players. So this is going to be one of those random burst damage AoE abilities that healers do need to look out for. And his third and final ability goes by the name of Freeze Spear Frozen Blood. And again this is where the Quillen will target Iron Quan's spear that he has thrown at a random player. And this will strike the spear with ice, freezing the ground around it. And if any players are to move into contact with the frozen ground, it will inflict 100,000 frost damage instantly and slow the player's movement speed, melee, ranged and casting speeds by 25%. And this is also a stacking debuff while standing within the area of frozen blood. So if you stand there for 4 seconds, you're going to be on 100% reduced casting speed, melee, ranged speed and also movement speed, so you'll be able to complete standstill. Don't go near the Spear of Doom, it's bad for you. Once you've defeated his 3 Quillen, he will then move on into the next phase where he will man up and fight you 1-on-1. Well, 1-on-10, technically speaking. So in the final phase, Iron Quan will still keep his first 2 abilities, which is the Throw Spear and the Stacking debuff on the tanks. So you still need to watch out for those 2 abilities. However, he will gain 4 new abilities, and these are really fun. So his first ability is called Fist Smash, and this will happen when he has thrown his spear, because when he has no spear in his hand, Iron Quan will smash the ground violently and inflict 25,000 physical damage to all players every 0.75 seconds for 7.5 seconds. So it's a bit like Epicenter on Fang the Accursed, however you're going to take the same amount of damage no matter where you are. His second ability goes by the name of Rising Anger, and as phase 2 goes on and he takes more damage, he'll become increasingly angry, which will increase his damage done by 10% per stack, so this is obviously a stacking buff on the boss. It's going to become harder to heal as the fight goes on, a bit like Warmaster Blackhorn back in Dragon Soul. What a raid that was. His third ability is called Ignite Cyclone, and this is where Iron Quan will ignite a random cyclone which will cause it to burn all players for 10,000 fire damage every 2 seconds. This is just something that unfortunately you have to heal through. You have to man up and take the damage. And his fourth and final ability is called Freeze Cyclone, and this is where Iron Quan will freeze a random cyclone which will cause it to entomb any players in ice upon contact. This player will take damage equal to 5% of their maximum health every 2 seconds. So you've got to try and avoid that really, but if you get caught it's just something else for your healers to happily heal you through. So that's going to do it for this Mr. Pandaria beta preview video. The Iron Quan encounter seems like it can be a lot of fun once you've got down on like the massive amounts of damage that you're going to be taking. Sorry, healers. And also your positioning for preferably Rorschach. You need your groups to be awake for that if you do go with the grouping strategy. But yeah, it's fun. Again, we all enjoyed it when we were testing it, so there's no reason we won't enjoy it when it goes to live. There will be another try of the first phase playing throughout the rest of this video, and the video will only go on for about another 2 or 3 minutes. So, as always, thank you for watching, and if you are interested in future Mr. Pandaria beta preview videos, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel.